Any questions on the sharpening? It's very, very simple. There's nothing to it. I mean, I can do it blindfolded, but I've been doing it for 40 years. It's natural to me. The first time you sharpen a pair of skates, it's not natural. One thing when you're sharpening, am I putting downforce on the stone? Yes, I am. Because if you stand here and just let the stone do the work, you will never take steel off. You'll never get a burr. You have to have a little bit of downforce on the stone for it to cut. The trick is you must be consistent from front to back with the stone, and having the jig fixed to a bench helps because you're not worried about the jig jumping around. At a competition where you've got the floor, you have no choice. One of probably the better things to do then is either sit on a bench or try and find a table and have somebody hold the jig for you. Failing that, you're left to kneeling on the floor and grabbing the jig with your knees and sharpening. It's not the best thing to do. You've got to do what you've got to do. I find the best height to sharpen the skates is, this is not far off. My table at home is a little higher. I tend to gauge the centre of the cross tube here with my belly button. If you can sort of set it up at that height, that is probably ultimate. Everybody's going to be up and down a little bit. I just find it's very comfortable at this sort of height. So consistent pressure from front to back. Don't just stand there and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 for half an hour. Do a couple of sets, so 4, 4, 4, 4, check for a burr. If you haven't got a burr, do another couple of 4s and check for a burr. Don't just sit there and go on and on, because you'll end up just wasting the blade away. So once you've got the burr, turn the stone over, smooth side, 4, 4, 4, 4, then straight up and down. Gently move the stone from side to side to make sure you're using as much of the stone surface as possible. Deburr in the jig, smooth side straight up and down. Deburr in the jig, smooth side straight up and down. Take the skates out the jig and do a full deburr on the side. Once you've done it half a dozen times, there should be no problem. I'm always around at the competitions. You can always come up to me and ask.
It is as much an art as it is a science, so getting to know how much pressure and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you don't want to be reefing on the stones, just a little bit of down pressure. Different stones, that, believe it or not, is the same stone. It's just that this is quite a few years old, and I've cleaned it quite a few times. It's still flat, so it's still a good stone. As you clean the stones, they do wear down a little bit. This is an oil stone. Obviously you have to have oil that goes on it. It is so messy, it stinks. You have to have a rag with you to wipe your blades down. You smell of oil. Many years ago, this is all we had. There were no Speedskate specific stones, so we had to use an oil stone. It did its job. There are still people out there that prefer this way to the dry stone. You notice I didn't put anything on this stone. It's a dry stone. If you put liquid on this stone and sharpen your skate, you wreck the stone. You can't unwreck it. Once you've done that, you're toast. You can't clean it anymore. Burr stones come in various shapes and sizes, and there are diamond stones, there are little carbide tips to cut the burrs off. I don't believe in the carbide tips. I don't think we should be cutting burrs off, but people have seen people do it, so they want them, and I sell them. I just don't think it's a good idea. I don't believe you can get as good an edge as that cutting an edge off.
Because it'll wear the metal the wrong way.
It's been a friend of mine at the Toronto club has access to a high-powered magnifying machine in a tool workroom, and he's done the experiment. He sharpened a pair of skates and he deburred them with a carbide tip, and then he looked at it, and then he resharpened them and did it with a stone, and looked at it again, and cutting the burr off left a jagged edge. You couldn't feel it, but you could see it. There are polishing gizmos out there. I use this a bit for club level skaters. I don't think there's anything wrong with the finish I got on these skates with just a stone finish. The faster the kids get, the more finicky they get with the finish of their skate. So somebody that is skating 45 seconds for 500 meters will polish their skates a little bit more. But believe me, they're not going to get anything better than what is on here. If you can run your fingers up and down the blade like this and you don't feel any blemishes, you know and it takes nail off. It's a good edge. A 90-degree edge is a 90-degree edge.
How often should you sharpen your skates?
It all depends on how often you skate. When I'm skating, I probably do 2 training sessions and I touch my skates up. Okay. Again, the test is if you've sharpened her skates and she skates 3 times a week, at the end of the week after 3 sessions, do that with your nail. If it doesn't take nail off, she's skating on a round edge, and when she starts skating faster, she's going to go visit the boards because she's got no edge.
Okay. My
My son skates at international level. He sharpens his skates every time he steps on the ice because he's skating 40 seconds for a 500. They are so reliant on that, on a good edge. So, the younger the skater, the more you can get away with. But on the other hand, the longer you leave your skates to sharpen, the longer it takes to sharpen. So if you get into a habit, and I'm pretty sure at this sort of level, once a week is good enough. When they go to a competition, now they are reliant on their edges to stay up. So you want to make sure that her skates are sharp for the Saturday morning, and then go home or back to the hotel Saturday night, sharpen the skates again for Sunday. She would probably get away with just having the skate sharpened once in the mornings. They only skate 4 times, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect the blades that much. The top end kids will sharpen their skates after every race. Do they need to? Probably not. But up here, it makes them happy because they know they've got the best edge. If you've got a good pair of blades, the edge lasts longer than those blades. It's a much, much softer blade. Club level, that's fine. When you progress through the sport, you want something a bit better. And that is what you pay for in a blade, is the quality of the steel. Anything else, Don?
I think so.
There are various different jigs out there. This is the maple jig. I sell this to families or skaters that are doing more than one pair of skates because it's easier to adjust for different lengths. There is a Pennington jig out there, which I don't have any at the moment. The Pennington jig not only clamps the blades in here, but there are screws that go through the side, which come up and touch the tube here and here. So I set the jig up just for those blades, and you can't, well, you can put the same maker blade in that jig, but you can't put, I couldn't put those blades in the jig that's set up for this. slightly more expensive, but it does probably the best job on the market for holding the skates in the jig solidly. This is probably the second best. Well, no, there is one other jig out on the market. It's called, I believe it's called Stay Bent, but they are $650 for a jig. And, American company, they make so many per year, and it's just, everything's just fully machined. It's a beautiful piece of engineering, but is it worth it? No, it's not. I only sell what I believe in. I can't afford to stock junk. It's dead stock. There's a lot of jigs out there that are rubbish. So if you're looking for a jig, make sure it's got a shelf to set the blades down on and well-machined jaws here to clamp the blade up. I'll show you what I mean by secure, because I'm sure these skates are going to wobble in the jig a little bit. Oh, these are pretty good. Now these are pretty good. This is a good test if you've got a good jig or not. You clamp the blades up and you try and wiggle the boots like this. Some jigs out there, and I'm not joking, you can almost do this with them because they're not very well made. And if your boots are doing that in the jig when you're sharpening, how can you get a 90-degree edge? If you're in the market for a jig, this jig is $220, that stone is $50, and a burr stone is $10. So ballpark figure, you're looking at $300 for a jig setup. What you need to take into account is at this age, there are kids out there with their own equipment, and they will gladly sharpen your skates for $5. If you buy your own equipment, you're going to end up saving the $5, and you're going to take the burden off of Don, who does it in the back here for free, if you have club skates. So $5 into 300, you know, that's yeah, that's a lot of sharpenings. You probably, where are we, 6 months of the year, once a week, so that's 4, 6, that's, what are we, 20, 24, 26, 28 odd weeks, that's 28 sharpens, so you might pay your jig off in about 3 or 4 years. I'm not trying, I mean, I'd love to sell you equipment, but it's things to think of.
I'm considering, like,